I have had professors in college more than once have a very bad reaction in academics to intellectual inquiry. Part of it is probably that the damage done by the grind of university jobs wears out the belief that the lives they're leading are meaningful. This was particularly true at Pitt, where a wall was built, which is reflected in American society, against authentic understanding of the meaning of nonviolence. We know from the script of Gail Burston, which is carefully hidden by the politicians and the political machine, the NAACP does not want word about Gail Burston to get around, that the message of the Israelis is that nonviolence just means you're asking for it. It's masochism. It means you want to be murdered or abused. That's the message of the Israelis. That's clear from the script. What the National Rifle Association comes up with is this idea that so you would sit still while a frogman raped your sister. And most normal people buy into the interrogation of the premise of nonviolent discretion in problem solving and conflict resolution by saying, no, of course I wouldn't. And they say, well, then you're obligated to buy arms and volunteer in the army. This becomes even more ideological of a form of psychology when a gang like the King family gets into a squabble over the property line between their estate and public interest. People have to rent parking spaces where I live. There's not always a place to park out front. So nonviolence means implicitly giving up any right to privacy or property or identity or civil protection. Because if you don't use violence to protect your property, someone will have to use violence to protect your property for you, is the lewd logic of this obscenity that is a constant grinding on against the powers of education. Now, where this becomes particularly scary to behold is in the idea of international law. The Sejm sort of veto, the veto that's self-defeating, that the United States exercised over the ceasefire in Gaza, becomes a mission statement for those who despise international law as inherently colonial. It's not. If it's used properly, it's the veto that suggests that might makes right, not the idea of outcasting people from civilized norms of trade, for example, if they violate international law. So what I present is that the emphasis in analysis is misconstrued. The people who are shooting Gazans as they line up for food are obviously criminally insane. But their power derives from the great chain of being, the people who allow or ignore that it is happening, who allow the armaments and ammunitions to change hands in their direction, who allow their society itself to engage in normal trade affairs while doing this abomination. So the real power is in normal trade relations. The real power is in civilized conduct. The real power is in what we call nonviolence, which is just legally abiding the way that we get along. It's not inherently duplicitous to believe in privacy, property, and the right to a livelihood if people recognize and approve of and respect the individual achievements of the person concerned, or recognize the unjust injuries of the person concerned. There's nothing that argues for ungenerous description in that. There's nothing that says, thou shalt not commit charity. It's sort of a shadowy misconstruction that darkens the argument that if you believe in rightful livelihood, you are therefore against charity, because it defines all charity as public misappropriation, which is insane. It's the essence of how Reagan gained power after killing JFK, which one of the reasons the NAACP doesn't want Gail Burson to get around shows that they've been helping the people who killed JFK by promoting Barack Obama. And they did so by constructing a weird myth about me. It's not sensible. And they say, we will never respect your dignities or your rights or your valor or your injuries or your hard work. And they use Obama's Two Virgins Pussy Ball mission as a sort of international construct of divine authority. They set up a Cantu repertory theater, guerrilla theater, absurd theater presentation of the white crossing the Louis line by being seduced by an Indian teacher who had a roommate that she said was a roommate, didn't even identify it as a man, who they then popped out of the rabbit hat of Donald Trump to announce, with Yusu Endor calling dibs on Midori, was a Louis adultering line. Oh, imagine the Taliban spinning the abacus of divine justice with George Bush Sr. over that one. So they bring me to Tacoma where it doesn't matter if my intellectual representation of how to do effective research on climate, this Velvet Revolution, the Palestinian circumstance, the misappropriation for warfare of the military's secret occupation, neoconservatives in Washington, D.C. It doesn't matter whether I can be helpful in identifying where to find expert mentors for young people who want to learn about protection of our society. None of that matters, because Shifty and his stalwarts have a ravenous hatred of me coming from the black market of Yoko Ono. So they will just do sabotage after sabotage after sabotage after sabotage. And that's what my mother calls my being an odd man out. They have this theme of giving you the finger and giving you the finger and giving you the finger. And if you give it back, they attack you with slaughtering head blows. It's abuse. And what these maniacs argue is that the philosophy of our society is that abuse is legitimate. Abuse makes right. It's damaged in terms of its organic meaning. What it means is that they don't want prosperity. They don't want dignity between people. They don't want children properly mentored. They don't want deaf people to be recognized as having disabilities and limitations. They don't want progress made on international law. They don't want Taylor Branch's notion that civil authority and due process and normal behavior in our Commonwealth is inherently nonviolent, that on a daily basis, the vast majority of people are praiseworthy and nonviolent. They don't want that. They want sneaky, ulterior propaganda to take hold, take root, and hold indomitable dominion.